was never in for me.
All right,
I did not wear them.
it was never in period, but like I wore them.
I always got the
Oh,
bowl cut for
yeah.
a few years, when I was younger in the 90s. That
Yeah.
was what me and my brother got. And looking back at the pictures, it's pretty embarrassing. Like computers and the internet and everything's on social media, it just looks like everybody is more easily offended. I don't know. I think that people don't. It's just what it looks like.
You're gonna have conflict. You're gonna have anger, but like to address it and really handle it and then eventually let it go, I think is a big part of that. I'm back. It's Aaron here, and we're having another chat room, and I have Jared Dean here, and Jared's gonna kind of reflect a little bit on this this past weekend's message. Again, we're still in Unoffendable. We finished it up, but I thought give us a little introduction of who you are.
My name's Jared Dean. I have been going to Centerpoint for about a year with my wife, Sierra, and we have 3 kids. 6 months is the youngest, and a 2-year-old and about a 5-year-old.
So we've shared, we kind of have parallel children almost, right? What were we thinking? Are you happy with 3? Are you guys going still, like, more?
There's never it's never a dull moment. And I don't know if that's ever out of the picture.
All right, go you guys.
We'll see.
We are done. We are done, is what I keep saying. We're done right now.
I think we're done.
We'll see.
Who knows?
We'll see. Yeah. Good for you guys. Awesome. All right. So we started kind of like the Sunday message talking about like decades and how there's like kind of some embarrassing things from. And we just reflected, like, you were born in 89, but I was born in 90, so similar age. Is there anything you're embarrassed about, like, in the decade you grew up in, or?
I think the only thing that comes to mind right away that I always got the bowl haircut, bowl cut for a few years, when I was younger in the 90s. That was what me and my brother got. And looking back at the pictures, it's pretty embarrassing. So.
Yeah, nice. And you have a twin brother, so it's like you guys had the matching bowl cuts?
Yeah.
Nice. I was thinking like just now this one came to mind, like me and my buddy, we used to wear like, remember like they were not Hawaiian shirts, but they were like flame, like they were button downs. I don't even know what they're called anymore, but it was like that was the in thing. They were like these graphic button downs.
I know what you're talking about, and it was never in for me.
All right,
I did not wear them.
It was never in period, but like I wore them. But they tend to be popular at times. Yeah, there were a lot of things, I guess, in the 90s that were not awesome. All right, well, give us a pulse. Do you think people as a whole are more or less easily offended these days? Like, I don't know if you shared earlier, but you are a police officer, so like, you get to interact with a lot of people. What do you think? Like, are people easily offended? Not so much?
I think initially, I think I'm going to disagree with some people, but initially, you go to, man, everybody is so easily offended these days, it seems like. I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm optimistic. I think it's just with the way that like computers and the internet and everything's on social media, it just looks like everybody is more easily offended, or that everybody gets offended easily. But I don't know. I think that people don't. It's just what it looks like nowadays.
Sure.
But in my mind of speaking with people and like my profession,
you'd
be surprised how many people are like, I don't care, it doesn't offend me. So
I think that's interesting because you were even sharing, as we were just talking earlier, like how you are able to have like a longer conversation with people, like when needed, right? And that kind of even de-escalates a lot of situations, and maybe de-escalates offenses, right? Like
absolutely.
Sure, people. I don't know a lot of people that are jacked, like the police are here, yay, but sometimes it's a good thing. But
absolutely.
But to be able to be there, maybe they're angry at first, but then to change it from being just anger to, all right, I'm not offended by this, but you're just addressing and handling the situation.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. this past Sunday we talked about Ephesians 4:26, and the verse starts with saying, "Be angry, but do not sin." And then it says, "Do not let the sun go down on your anger." Do you tend to be an angry person? Like, is that verse hard for you? Like to let it go by the day?
I am not an angry person really at
Okay.
all. I think anybody who's spent some time with me knows that. I mean, even my wife has said, I mean, you're like the least angry person.
Yeah.
Even in my career, I've noticed like things that anger other officers or anger people. Sometimes it's just I kind of let things go and
Yeah.
don't really get easily angered. So it's always been a verse that I've liked, and I've never felt like I've really struggled with it either.
Sure.
Just because I like to deal with things like
Yeah.
right away.
Yeah.
If I do feel like something upset me, anger me, so
Yeah.
I feel like I'm good at just kind of dealing with it right then and there, and I'm no longer angry.
Like, I want to pick your brain on that for a second. Like, why do you think that is? Like, why do you think you like don't get angry? Like, I would say I'm similar. Like, I get angry, I get mad, but I don't tend to hold on to it too long. I'm a very reflective person. Like, I'll start to process, like, that was just dumb of me. And I get maybe why that person's feeling that way or whatever. And, I start processing and seeing it from their side. But, like, is there a reason, like, you see yourself not getting angry? Because I know a lot of dudes that do get angry, right?
As do I. I mean, I see it every day. And I haven't always been that way. I know, like, when I was younger in high school and college, like, um, there was definitely times with whether it's my brother or just other people, I would get angry, very upset, um, and I don't know if it's just a combination of just my parents or
So,
I
like,
think
upbringing, even, yeah.
upbringing, and then also I think a big part is like as I've matured, in my Christian faith or and with God, it's just I, I don't know. I was able to kind of overcome most of that. I mean, and it wasn't like things necessarily offended me or upset me. It was more like like arguments with a relative or my
Sure.
brother or whatever. So that I would really get angry, and yeah, and then part of it is also too like college and then the police academy and stuff. Just
Yeah.
like you're always taught, you just remain level-headed. Don't let things get
Yeah.
to you. Like have thick skin. And
Yeah.
I think I just kind of took that to heart and just like, okay, I'm not gonna let something
Yeah.
upset me.
Well, and I even would say, like, I see anger as like a poor character trait. It's like this character trait that I don't want to be associated with. So, like you said, like the academy kind of trains you to be level-headed, and like that's almost this thing where you're like, that is an ideal of life is to be level-headed. So, if I need to maintain that in all areas of life, not just work.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And I've always told myself that like being upset or angry or negative is like you can choose to not be, to be positive. I mean, maybe not right in the moment, but once you like calm down for a minute, I've always kind of just told myself to just try to look at the positives. And again, when I look at other people who do get angry, I think generally what's missing is God in their life, and just what I know of the Bible and my own studies, and has it without like realizing it in the moment, it touches you, and then all of a sudden, I mean, like I said, I'm just not an angry person.
Yeah, well, I love it. Let's talk about marriage now, though. When it comes to marriage, like, is that verse hard for you and your wife? Like, you touched on it a little bit. Like, is there something silly that you guys tend to bicker about that maybe would be like could escalate to anger, or maybe it's just bickering? I don't know.
Well, and don't get me wrong, we have our arguments, and we get angry, but I mean, it's not. This verse again with our marriage has not been difficult. And I'm not going to say never, but I'm the type that wants to hash things out when it happens. If I'm upset or if my wife's upset, like I want to dig down and figure it out. If it's me, I'll bring it up and we'll talk about it. Like I don't like to just sit in it. I don't know anybody who enjoys to be angry, so and I'm not afraid to talk, so I'll just bring it up, and Sierra sometimes needs a little more time to doesn't want to talk about it right away, but she is pretty good actually. I mean, if I bring it up, and she will, and we settle right then and there, and we definitely try not to ever go to bed angry at each other. And like I said, it's not gonna be never, but I think we're pretty good about that. And whether it's because I always want to talk about it right then and there.
I shared like on Sunday, like how like Sydney and I got in a little fight or argument on Wednesday. I don't even remember what it was about, but anyways, she likes more time. I like to address it, so very similar, but poke the bear per se, of like, hey, are we? But it wasn't there. And then at night it was a longer discussion where we really did talk about it. But then like the next day, it was done. Like we resolved it, and it was like not this, I'm still kind of mad at you. It was done. Right. And like, I think that is so important, or otherwise like to like kind of half be done with it. And then now the next thing comes, and now you got like, you could throw that back into the equation where it's like that is just something we or we avoid at all costs, because now it's like this burden on burden on burden, and it becomes a lot. But
and and then it's hard to dig out of a hole. And I think you said like even, and I can't think of specifics even to what it is, but like generally with me and her, it's me saying something dumb. I mean, usually it's some type of criticism of something she's doing or did, and usually it's kind of a pointless comment, like, well, that's pointless. It doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to criticize that. And then, so then it's me realizing she's upset and having to, in that moment, usually you have to apologize first and then you can talk about it, but not always. So that's kind of what our bickers are about.
I would agree. Like, that's probably similar for our relationship. It's usually me. A comment that usually, as I'm processing it right now, it's usually a comment that's meant to prove a point.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
That is like subtle, like in my mind subtle, but it is not subtle to her. And like it's like, wrong time. Not the right place. So I think we're similar in that sense. But all right, let's move on. Like, so the next part of that verse, that Ephesians verse, it says, "Do not give place to the devil," as in your anger that continues. Don't let it a place for evil to use that, because it can, is what Scripture's saying. Do you believe that? Do you believe evil can use like unresolved conflict? And then especially like in your line of work per se, like, do you see that? Like if there's anger that's still there that hasn't been resolved, like do people does it tend to like turn into something way worse than it really should be?
Yeah, and I absolutely believe that. I always have believed that, and I've heard that before elsewhere, that I believe that if you get offended by something, you get upset with something, and you just let it continue to, you just sit in that, and you're just thinking about that, and I 100% believe that can then make it easier for Satan to influence your thoughts, or like you're thinking of negative thoughts, and I believe that 100%. And then with my profession, I think we've probably all seen it, but I see it all the time, where somebody who wouldn't even think they could, do something as horrible as they did, it's because they were sitting, generally because they got very upset about something, very angry about something, and it's not usually right then and there they did it, but they sit in that and they continue to stay angry, or it continues for a week or a month, whether it's with their neighbor or with a family member, and then they snap, and they just kept, and it all stems back from the one thing that they were upset about. They snap, they do something that they're a good person, but they did something that they didn't think they could do just because of the sitting that anger. Yeah, no,
I can't imagine, because in my mind I think something you're angry about, and if you sit in it and don't address it, like what greater, I mean, not to be a doom and gloom type guy, but like what greater way for evil to attack than to try to separate families, to have someone sent away to prison, or like whatever it maybe is, have someone that does something that's going to ruin their reputation, ruin their finances, ruin whatever it maybe is, and it's like, all because something angrily happened, but then it just kept sitting there. That hurts to think about.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I think, what, Satan wants.
Yeah.
Wants that big thing to happen that ruins lives.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes it's not even but it starts with the little thing. Is kind of what we're getting back to. But wow. All right. How about this one? Do you think anger makes us sloppy? Like, we talked a little bit about, like, being angry. It just sometimes makes you, at least this is my opinion, it makes you less thoughtful. Like, you are, like, and that's where I think evil can infiltrate. But, like, do you see that, or do you agree with that?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think we've all felt it. I mean, when something upsets you, you're angry about something, and it kind of goes to the studies that you brought up and the service, and which I thought was interesting, because you can see it, like, you don't think as rational. You can't think as rational.
Yeah.
Especially like
thinking
right
part
in
of
the
the brain
moment.
shuts down. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, so as far as like sloppiness, I mean, you're not. I don't think. Well, you're definitely not probably spending any time with God.
Yeah.
You're not close with God. You're not praying. But then it affects, family, and I think you're less patient with your kids. You're less patient with your significant other, and you're not taking care of the things that you probably should be at home. I mean, and even if you try to, like, you're not going to do as good of a job with it, or you're going to miss things just because you're in the back of your head, you're thinking about that thing that upset you.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
Like, because it's just like, when you're angry, you're not seeing things straight, and even if you're used to being there, but you're just not, like, taking all sides in, because it's more of the fight or flight, as in protect, protect myself, protect whatever it is that I'm angry about. But all right, how about this one? Do you find comfort in knowing? So we're getting to some of the resolves. Like, how do we move past from offendedness of things in the past? Like, and one of the big parts was, like, knowing and giving the role of judge to God. And it's not us having to judge this person or to decide if this person's in or out or whatever it is. Like, and sometimes we can easily let it go because we're giving it to God. That offense that maybe happened to us. Are you able to give him, like, some of the, like, past things that, like, does that help you, or, like, to be able to, hey, I know God's got this, does that help you in your life?
Yep, sure. It sure does. I mean, I don't, like, when I am upset, I mean, and that's a part of, like, just letting something go. It's because I know that God is in control, and it does provide me with comfort. And I mean, going back to, like, getting angry and stuff, that's the whole reason why I think it's easy for me to let things go, is because I know that, God is in control. He's the judge.
Yeah.
It's not, this person or whatever happened to me that made me angry, is whether they're a Christian or not, which a lot of times in my profession they're not, but I mean, that's up to, what they got going on in their life. And I mean, that's, God is in control. There's no point in me being, upset or losing my cool or having, poor attitude because of that. I mean, I can control how I'm going to act, and so it does give me a lot of comfort knowing that I can just look to God and be like, well, you can handle this. I'm not going to worry about it.
Yeah, I love it. So then the next thing we talked a bit about, so, like, after giving it to God, it's kind of the forgiveness, and forgiving, like, maybe it even starts for your own sake, because, like, there are benefits to that. Like, that's not my dream, is like, hey, I want you just to keep forgiving for your own sake. I want people to forgive because God commands it. But have you experienced, like, the positive effects of, like, forgiveness personally? Like, where it's like, I've moved on from this and I'm so happy I did. Or are there some grudges that you hold on to still that are ruining some of your peace and unhappiness?
Well, and we kind of touched on this before the recording was on, but and I, like I said, I think I'm just really blessed. I don't have a lot of things from my past that I'm like, man, I still have a grudge against that person or this thing that happened to me. And I think in part it's because a lot of things that have happened to me, I just, I think it's maybe back when I was younger, I didn't say I was forgiving them, but it's like, I'm just going to let that go because God's got that. And there have been times where I've tried to think of what I need to release or who I need to forgive.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's done. It's in the past and I've let it go. And then I don't think about it. I don't worry about it anymore. I don't think about it. I think that's the positive part of it is like, I'm not even thinking about that anymore. And I don't have that, that feeling in my stomach, like I'm upset about this. And it just, you feel better afterwards.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm similar in the sense like I didn't have like I don't have a struggle like forgiving people. Like I didn't have something super traumatic happen to me as a kid or even as an adult. But it's but I think like a big part of like why I was able to let it go. It's like I've always had like forward like motion in my mind of like I'm not going to sit in this past. Sure. I'm not going to sit in this hurt or like why would I want to do that to myself? And the way for me to get past this is forgiveness. And then the last point was like letting it go. It was like I just need to like let this go and move on. Like whether again I haven't gone through the super hard stuff that maybe other people have, but it's like that has worked for a lot of things in my life where it's like, I got to let this go. And that's where I've ultimately, I think, found the peace and the joy of life is through that.
And with that, I think with like the forgiveness, then that helps you mend relationships. Yeah. I mean, I know me and my twin brother, when like, we have a great relationship now. We talk all the time. We try to hang out as much as we can because he's got 3 kids as well. And our relationship would not be like that if we didn't forgive each other growing up because, we got into some pretty good fights and arguments throughout high school, into college, even into, adult life, that every single time it didn't matter really what was said or what happened. We both knew we were going to forgive each other. We did forgive each other. We've talked about that to an extent and even apologized for stuff and like so that we could forgive each other. And we knew we were going to forgive each other. And I think if we held on to that stuff, our relationship would not be where it's at. And the same with friendships. I mean, that people have done stuff to you. So I think that's a huge positive that comes out of it.
That was the thing I shared at the end where it's just like I think the common denominator of like seeing people who are married as long as they are, seeing people who have friendships for, that are years on end, working at the same place. It doesn't happen by accident. I think it really happens because you're going to have conflict. You're going to have anger, but like to address it and, really handle it and then eventually let it go, I think is a big part of that. So
yeah, I agree 100%.
Awesome. Well, thanks for chatting. It was fun to catch up and hear some of your perspective on this.
Yeah, it was fun. I appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Jared.